My Neighbor Totoro, one of the earliest of the Studio Ghibli films written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki. My first experience to the world of Studio Ghibli was with 1997's Princess Mononoke. That film was an exceptional piece of artwork which led me to peruse the back catalog of Miyazaki's other films. My Neighbor Totoro is a very simple plot. There's really not a lot to spoil with this film. It focuses on two young girls, Setzuki and Mei Kusakabe, and their father Tetsuo. The family moves into a small rickety house outside in the countryside, while their father commutes to the city to be a professor of archaeology. One of the more charming aspects of the film is how believable the characters are. They really invoke a sense of imagination and innocence. Everything is exciting, everything is a brand new adventure. One of the earliest discoveries the girls find in the house are these little black soot gremlins that run around the house, and whenever a door opens or their lights flicked on, they all disperse immediately into the cracks and crevices. That's one of the really interesting things about the father. He's not the kind of father that is like, oh, well, that's ridiculous, oh, I can't believe you believe in such things. Stop wasting time and indulging in these little silly fantasies of yours. Everything they describe to him, everything they explain to him, he is encouraging, he's thoughtful, he's supportive. Does he believe in these little mythical creatures that exist within their countryside home? Maybe, maybe not, but even if he doesn't, he's kind enough to let them enjoy that flights of fancy in their childhood. Mrs. Kusakabe is in a hospital. They don't ever really describe what she has as an illness. The closest thing I can figure out about doing a little extra research is this film was based off Miyazaki's early life. They of course made a couple changes, but his own mother was hospitalized due to tuberculosis, so that is probably the case here. But again, they just leave it as an illness, and I guess in a lot of ways that's really a nice way of doing it, because it really doesn't instill that fear of cancer or leukemia or whatever. It's an illness, their mother's away, they never really show any decline in their mother's health other than she's supposed to be there. Eventually she'll get well enough to come home. It does come into play as the film progresses. The first 30 minutes of this film are essentially the children getting used to their new home and making new friends and meeting the neighbors and just exploring the countryside around them. However, when they meet Totoro and his companions, things obviously change. There's three Totoro creatures. There's the Chibi Totoro, which is like a little white, bunny-looking, almost translucent spirit. The medium Chu Totoro, which is a blue spirit that always carries a bag of acorns. And then there's the big Totoro, which in some translations is known as King Totoro. It's Mei who discovers the Totoro's first during one of her play sessions. The initial meeting between Mei and Totoro is just such a wonderful, sweet moment, because the spirit world only opens up to humans when they allow themselves to be seen. Mei follows after them. They are trying to get away from her at first, but when she stumbles into a hole and falls right on top of Totoro, it really is a sweet moment because he's sound asleep. He's this giant bunny cat looking creature who's big and fluffy and soft, and that just delights her. His reaction to her is so funny. It's like, oh, there's a thing on me, and then he just blows it off. And of course she kind of, again, still fascinated by this giant creature, picks and pokes at him, and finally he says Totoro, which he takes to be his name. He roars at her when he says it just because of his big mouth. She roars back at him. That gets his attention a little bit more, but he's just more surprised. It's like, oh, this thing is roaring at me. He doesn't really put a lot of stock into her. He's just like, oh, you're here. And they take a nap together. One of the things, if you've never seen a Miyazaki movie before, there are two elements which are spectacular in any of these films. Any of the natural countrysides like grass or leaves or trees or just food. They put so much care and attention to detail. They are truly beautiful scenes in any of these films. Eventually Setzuki meets Totoro while she and Mei are standing at the bus stop waiting for her father to return from a late night lecture. He's kind of warming up to the concept of these two young girls that live near his forest, and his first time experience with an umbrella and the surrounding rain is just a lot of fun. As a result of the children's gift, he gives them a bag of acorns which they obsessively try to grow into trees. Totoro and his companions come down to help the children grow their trees into what might actually just be a temporary adventure. Totoro and his companions live in the forest, and at night they sit in tall trees and play their little musical instruments, and they just watch over the children. In a lot of respects, they may be watching over the children because they know they are having a tough time. This film is played so much as like the lazy days of summer, but there's always in the background the mother's mysterious illness. At one point, the mother takes a downturn, and the children get scared, and it leads to another adventure in which Setzuki needs Totoro's help, and he's more than happy to help them. There's another character called the Cat Bus, which is this weird multi-legged cat that is part cat, part bus. It's this strange creature that humans generally can't see and can basically go anywhere to the destination of anything. If you're looking for a film that's just very casually paced and feels believable and the characters are fleshed out, the children genuinely feel like children and how they'd react to certain situations. The soundtrack for this film is Joe Hisaishi is essentially what Danny Elfman is to Tim Burton or John Williams is to Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. He's done a number of Miyazaki's films. Originally in Japan, this film was double billed with Grave of the Fireflies. If you've never seen Grave of the Fireflies, that is perhaps one of the most gut-punching films, animated or otherwise. They chose this as the double bill where Grave would play first and Totoro would play second, which honestly, that was a really good call because you would be so freaking depressed after seeing Grave of the Fireflies, and you really need the just upbeat, charming, wondrous feeling of Totoro to kind of get you through it. I couldn't imagine just the mood whiplash that if they'd switched the billings. But Grave of the Fireflies is excellent, but yeah, it just guts you. Oh my god, that movie. There has never been a sequel to any of Miyazaki's films, and I respect that as a filmmaker. However, in the Ghibli Museum, there is a tiny short film called May and the Kitten Bus. So I guess the cat bus got around, found Mrs. Cat Bus, and they had a kitten bus. I have not seen it. It's exclusive only to the museum, and I think they've shown it once at a retrospective here, and unfortunately I missed that. But it's not on home video, it's not on streaming. I guess I'm going to have to travel to Japan to go see this little short. My Neighbor Totoro is a gentle, good-natured film. Its animation is striking. I love the scenery. The characters are so believable. Totoro is a charming little forest spirit, although Miyazaki maintains he's an animal. But he's comparable to Winnie the Pooh. He's very simple. He just wants to sleep and hang out and play music, and he makes these friends that he wants to help. He's more than happy to do it. If you've never seen My Neighbor Totoro, do yourself the favor. I think it's a great film for kids, and I think it's a great film for people who remembered the joy and the innocence and the wonder that it was like being a kid and exploring dark attics and roaring at nothing just to scare anything that might be away. It just puts you in such a good mood after watching it because it's so friendly and playful, and even during the parts where it gets a little serious. That's another thing I'd have to touch on. Even when it gets serious after such a light little gentle feeling, when things do get serious, you find that you are genuinely emotionally wrapped up with these characters. They, seeing them sad and hurt and upset, it really affects you. It's nice building a connection with the characters in the story. Well, that's it for this edition of It Came From the Rental Store. If you have any suggestions, definitely drop me a couple comments. Right now, there's just a lot of free time, so, watching movies right now and getting recommendations is just one of the ways to make our own lazy days of summer go just a little bit faster and a little bit easier. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again that next time. Take care.